childhood training exercises and testing, how occult families groom, program, and spiritually seal the gifted child. Trigger warning. This video series covers disturbing and very serious topics. Full legal disclaimer in the video description below. Welcome back. I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and this is the Occult Bloodlines series, where we decode the systems of spiritual grooming and generational control that shape life inside ritual-based families. In this video, we're going to expose how children in occult bloodline systems are not just abused, they are trained, tested, and spiritually initiated through carefully orchestrated exercises designed to activate gifts, implant control systems, and engineer loyalty to the family's ritual structure. For those born into these families, the abuse is not random. It is not disorganized. It is not simply trauma in the clinical sense. It is a curriculum, a systematic process of spiritual engineering designed to create a specific kind of human being, fractured but gifted, obedient but powerful, loyal but empty. And the earlier this begins, the more likely the child is to forget their original essence and mistake programming for personality. Let's begin with a foundational truth. Children in occult families are often selected based on spiritual potential. Certain bloodlines have long practiced energy harvesting, soul contracts, and metaphysical engineering. Children born into these families, especially those with natural gifts like intuition, empathy, telepathy, or mediumship, are seen as assets. They are not raised, they are recruited. From infancy, these children undergo a series of what can only be described as training exercises masked as life experiences. But these exercises are not neutral. They are spiritually coded, designed to fracture identity, test allegiances, measure intuition, and embed ritual obedience deep into the subconscious. Let's walk through the stages and types of childhood testing used by occult bloodline families. 1. Memory drills and sensory deprivation. One of the earliest exercises used on gifted children in ritual families is memory distortion and manipulation. These are often presented as games, but have a specific goal: to disrupt the child's natural recall pathways while increasing the ability to store trauma in fractured compartments. You may have experienced guessing games that seemed innocent, but were repeated excessively, often tied to emotional reward or punishment. You may have been asked to repeat obscure sequences, memorize strange names or phrases, or recite stories backward. These weren't for fun. They were exercises in mind control and fragmentation. Coupled with these drills were often forms of sensory deprivation or sensory flooding. Lights being turned off for long periods, being left alone in silent rooms, or being forced to listen to chaotic sounds. These weren't neglectful accidents. They were training exercises to induce altered states, numbness, or early dissociation. The goal is simple: break the link between memory and emotional continuity. Create a child who can store experiences in isolated boxes, easy to access for ritual performance, but disconnected from core identity. In short, these memory games are the foundation of compartmentalization. 2. Mirror games and shadow invocation. Many ritual families engage children in mirror-based exercises that appear spiritual or psychological on the surface, but serve a much darker purpose. You may have been told to stare into a mirror for long periods, often in low light or under ritual instruction. This practice is a form of scrying or portal work, where the child's consciousness is pulled into non-ordinary states. During these moments, the child may report seeing another version of themselves, shapes behind them, or voices emerging through the reflection. This is not imagination. It is a spiritual exercise of shadow invocation. These mirror drills are used to desensitize the child to spiritual presence, open doorways to the astral, and even begin early bonding with spiritual entities assigned to their bloodline. The mirror becomes a threshold, not just to the self, but to the constructed identity the family wishes the child to accept. It's also a common site for what's called spiritual replacement, where the child's original sense of self is gradually overridden by a public-facing altar or ritual persona. 3. Astral travel tests and fear loops. Children in occult families often report unusual sleep experiences, vivid dreams, sleep paralysis, floating sensations, or being pulled out of body. These are not mere dreams. They are often the result of astral testing, deliberate extraction of the child's consciousness into ritual spaces. In this realm, children are presented with tasks: finding someone, answering riddles, surviving a threat, or even performing a ritual. These tests are real. The child is being evaluated on their spiritual obedience, fear response, and loyalty to spiritual authority. What's particularly insidious is the use of fear-based loops in both waking and dream states. For example, being placed in a dark room with no explanation. Being told someone they love will be harmed unless they complete a task. Being tricked into trusting someone, only to be betrayed. These loops are not incidental. They are programmed into the child's subconscious to simulate future betrayal and lock in the idea that trust equals danger. Over time, the child may lose the ability to distinguish between safe and unsafe people, making them more reliant on the family's inner circle. 4. Trust-building betrayal loops. One of the most psychologically brutal tools used in occult child grooming is the trust test, followed by intentional betrayal. These are often staged events where a trusted adult or sibling offers comfort or help, only to immediately violate, abandon, or ridicule the child. For example, a child may be told they are going to receive a gift or reward. They get excited, feel safe, and open up, only for the situation to turn humiliating, painful, or traumatic. This is done repeatedly to create a subconscious rule. Trust leads to suffering. These loops are not just psychological, they are ritualized, often reinforced with symbols, words, or punishments. The goal is to destroy the child's ability to bond with outsiders and to engineer total psychological dependence on the family system. This also sets up the child to remain loyal to their abusers well into adulthood, because their internal code links all outside trust with danger and betrayal. 5. Awakening and sealing of spiritual gifts. Perhaps the most disturbing layer of this entire structure is how spiritual gifts, psychic sight, healing ability, clairaudience, intuition, are not only recognized early in children, but deliberately awakened and then sealed. In some families, the child is given tasks that validate their abilities. For example, guessing cards or images and getting praise when correct. Being asked to feel who is calling before the phone rings. Being encouraged to speak to invisible beings, with adults listening. At first, this feels empowering. The child thinks their gifts are celebrated. But once the gift is active, the family inserts a spiritual contract or ritual token to claim it. They may say, "You only have this gift because you belong to us." Or they might assign the child a spiritual guide who is really a tethered entity. Or they might perform a ritual that binds the gift to a phrase, a name, or a bloodline vow. Then, the gift is sealed. If the child begins to rebel, the gift is cut off. If they try to use it for freedom, it stops working. This on-off mechanism keeps the gifted child spiritually dependent and emotionally confused. In many cases, the child will spend adulthood wondering why their intuition is blocked, why they can't connect to spirit, or why they feel haunted by gifts they once had. The truth is, those gifts were never lost. They were sealed. 6. Training through suffering as initiation. In occult families, suffering isn't just tolerated, it is spiritualized. Pain, humiliation, and violation are not viewed as accidental. They are considered initiation rites. You may have been told, directly or indirectly, that you were chosen for hardship, that your suffering is your purpose, that you must carry the family karma. These ideas are not innocent. They are part of the training to mold you into a spiritual tool for the bloodline. This belief is often enforced by adult handlers, spiritual mentors, or relatives who seem mystical, but who feed off your continued dysfunction. Their job is to convince you that if you feel broken, it means you're powerful. And if you hurt enough, maybe one day you'll earn your spiritual name. That's not truth, that's bondage. How to begin deprogramming. These ritual trainings. Now, let's talk briefly about how to undo what was done. Name the exercises. One of the first steps to deprogramming is to identify the games, loops, or rituals you were put through. List them. Even if they seem like childhood memories, ask yourself, was that an exercise in fear, trust, or control? Reclaim your gifts. Declare, any spiritual gift that was bound, sealed, or made conditional, I now reclaim as mine. I revoke any contract that linked my ability to obedience, suffering, or silence. Reverse the loop logic. You must rewrite the code. Trust is safe when given to the worthy. Love does not require betrayal. My intuition works even when I'm free. Destroy ritual anchors. If you have objects, names, symbols, or clothes tied to these childhood rituals, burn them, bury them, or dispose with intention. Those items often act as ritual anchors, keeping your energy in the loop. Let's review. Occult families use childhood not for care, but for spiritual engineering. Memory drills, sensory deprivation, mirror rituals, and dream manipulation are used to fragment and control the child's identity. Gifts are activated early, then sealed through spiritual contracts. Fear loops and betrayal cycles are used to train obedience and shut down trust. Deprogramming requires naming the rituals, reclaiming the gifts, and dissolving the seals placed during those early tests. If you were raised like this, your pain isn't proof of failure. It's evidence of power. They only train what they want to control. And if they spent years trying to program you, it's because your soul carried something they couldn't risk you waking up with unguarded. Now you know, and now you can begin to take it back. Hi, I'm Adeline Atlas, 11 times published author, and what you just watched is part of my signature program, the Chosen One series inside School of Soul. This series is not just a course, it's a blueprint for those who know they were different from the start. The black sheep, the scapegoat, the truth teller, the cycle breaker. Inside, you'll discover the family roles playbook, the golden child, the scapegoat, the enabler, the lost child, and how to finally step out of the part you were cast in without consent. How the black sheep becomes the goat, turning rejection into radical transformation in leadership. How to break generational curses and rewrite ancestral contracts so the pain stops with you. And how to recognize and escape modern forms of spiritual and technological targeting, from gang stalking to synthetic synchronicity. This isn't just about survival, it's about awakening. about reclaiming your voice, your lineage, and your destiny as one of the chosen ones. Click the link below to access the full series now, because the role ends the moment you decide it does, and the real script begins with you.